access the notes via the video, which takes a couple hours to actually upload and process.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're welcome. And if you don't mind closing the door on the way out. Okay, we're left with a skeleton crew here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
How many people are missing?
There's
Just 3, right?
10
We're missing from this class though.
from this class. Marissa and those two.
So 3. You said 10.
10 total, and there's 7 of us.
I thought of the class.
I know, like from the beginning.
She thought you were saying that
From
we're
like
missing
beginning
time.
or like.
No, from now. Why are you way over there? Huh?
She doesn't like it when you sit in your in a spot that
There's
you don't
10
normally.
Well, you know, when you rise to that
There's 10 kids
elevated
in this
level
class.
of achievement,
Subtract
you have
3,
to separate
that's 7,
yourself
which is
as
how many
the,
kids.
the reigning
Currently,
queen of,
7 hours of sleep.
no.
Sleep today. I had 7 hours of sleep last night.
These are all of my bees,
Hey, yeah, we could make a pretty picture with
and
that.
then this is a C. I don't know where that came from.
Oh, random.
I seem to be averaging a set 88 or an 80 something. That's cool.
Okay, so I do want to let you see the calendar, because if you haven't looked at it yet, it's actually, I go faster than even this. So we begin today, and today's Wednesday. By next Friday, you're having a unit test on it. It's not a chapter that has any kind of dedicated single chapter in Barron's. It's kind of combined in and amongst other chapter material. And so we're going to go through this material today and Friday, and Monday you have a quiz on this material that's on the board. Okay, 128 to 144, which takes us up to, I can't remember exactly what part of the chapter. Okay, so literally I just want to, and by the way, I made up a quiz on this chapter, and I had a hard time finding 30 questions that I thought were valuable information. So I am literally going to pick and choose the most important things that I think you need to know for this chapter, okay? Nature, nurture. How many times have you had nature and nurture in your education? So chapter 4 is going to be an easy one. Chapter 5 is about human development, if you remember from last year. Piaget and womb to tomb and how long all of that took. It's not going to take us tremendously long. We're just going to have a lot to learn at the time. So as we look at nature nurture, we want to take into account everything that is environment and everything that is the genetic part. And just to let you know before we go too far, environment is a huge term. It is everything that can't be accounted for by genes. And so that, when we talk about environment, we're literally talking about from the moment of conception and everything that happens in utero and all of the other things. Okay, so we also want to take a look at this term, these guys and women, behavior geneticist. as a field of study. I think that would be kind of a cool job. They study our differences, human differences from one another. And then they sift out the relative importance of heredity and environment on behavior. So we'll be getting a couple of questions, or at least one question that asks, what is the job of this kind of person who does this work? Okay, let's talk about your human cell. What do you have in every cell?
DNA.
Yeah, I left that question wide open. You have DNA, which does what?
Codes for, like, it's a universal genetic code.
Yeah, it provides the genetic code. And,
In the form of a chromosome.
yes. So is DNA composed of chromosomes, or is chromosomes composed of DNA?
Chromosomes composed of DNA.
Right. So I want to go from the
Inside.
macro to the micro. So we'll kind of reverse the order. We have the chromosome. We'll start with that. That's number one. And how many of them do you have in every one of your body cells?
46.
46 you hope to have. If not, you're probably not human. Okay, 46 in each cell.
Isn't it when you have like autism or something?
No,
Is
it's
it-
down.
Down syndrome. Is it the
Tries to be
21st?
21.
21st.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
You
why I was
you
thinking
have-
21. I don't
Tries
know.
to meet, it's on the 21st, yeah.
That's on the 21st chromosome.
Uh-huh.
And there are
She
other
knows.
somes, which I wasn't actually that aware of it. My daughter, who's pregnant now, had a blood test fairly early in her pregnancy, and I guess it's routine, because she's not old, like an older mother or anything. And they tested for all the somes.
Oh, I think you can decide to have that done.
No, you decide whether or not to hear.
To hear about it.
Yeah, because some people don't want to. Like my mom opted out of it because she didn't like care if I was Downs or not. But like I think it is with everyone that they have to do it. It's required.
So, times have changed. They surely didn't, first of all, they had those tests back when I was pregnant, but they did not routinely do them. Zach?
What's sickle cell anemia?
It's a problem with the production of the red blood cells, but other
nothing to
than
do
that,
with
I don't know.
When you create polypeptide proteins in your body,
Uh-huh.
they don't have this iron oxygen like bonding, and you can't carry enough oxygen to the injured part of your body, and it can impede blood flow and other types of flow.
It's a deletion in the DNA code.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Oh, no,
that
it's a switch. There's a switch in the DNA code or deletion. I forget one of those that like causes you to have that.
and it hits the African American
Yeah,
or
that's
black. I don't know if it's just African American. I think it's African descent.
It was
African descent. Okay, so there's a little difference here. Not every cell in your body has 46 chromosomes, right?
No, your sex cells.
Right. So the eggs have 23, and the sperm has 23. So in your body, there is a difference in the sex cells. And obviously it's designed that way so that you can create a new human being with the right number of chromosomes. So in a chromosome you have the coil chain of deoxyribonucleic acid. So the chromosome contains DNA, which is number 2 in terms of big to little. And the DNA contains what?
Nucleotides?
Polypeptides.
No, nucleotides.
Not that kind of
Oh.
answer.
Not that micro.
Inside the DNA, there are segments
Genes.
that are called genes. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
So the third and smallest is the gene.
Yeah, this chapter doesn't go really as in depth as
Yeah,
polypeptides.
I'm just used
Yeah.
to like,
No.
Just doc.
I'm just used to just screaming out.
Chapter 5.
For doc.
For doc.
Yeah.
Okay, so and every one of your cells has the same structure. That's in terms of the chromosomal genetic code, all right? We have about 20 to 25,000 genes. And then when you think about all the different traits that a human can have, the vast majority of them, we're talking not just about your physical traits, but your personality and all of the things that are inherited. And personality is to some extent inherited. That these things are multi-genetic in origin. That most things that are genetically transmissible are not due to one gene. You can't say, oh, I got the gene for stupidity. Because there is no such single gene. There are, okay, I take that back. There are some traits, but the vast majority of them are combinations. Okay. Now, we gotta understand what genes do, because they're a lot more complicated than, well, a lot more complicated than we're gonna go into, but they're more complicated than we think. Okay, I got this gene, that means that I'm gonna have this thing expressed in my genome, my own personal instructions for who I am. It may or may not be expressed. Okay, what I meant to say is genes direct, they have a job, which is pretty cool, and provide the code for the production of protein molecules. And these protein molecules are the things that end up creating the traits or turning on specific traits. And if you have come into the world and you have blue eyes, your blue eyes are not likely to change. However, there are some traits that may or may not be turned on by the environment.
When I was born, I think I had blonde hair. Is that possible to change? Or was like
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yes.
Okay. 'Cause I was-
And that's just a kind of a natural progression for a lot of people.
Yeah, animals.
Um,
Like little
so many people I know have blonde hair.
Okay.
and right now it's, as adults,
My dad had
Dark.
bleach blonde hair.
Yeah, I had
when he
really
was,
blonde hair till I was like 5 and it just changed or something. I don't know if it's 5, I think.
and what makes that work? I don't know. One of my nephews had almost white hair and now it's as dark as Maggie's. Very, very dark
Your
hair.
parents die in your sleep.
Is that what we do?
The hair fairy.
Okay, should we mention that for the male, it's a Y chromosome, and for the female, it's an X chromosome? And by the way, there are gonna be some variations on that theme in terms of what your gene expression for sex may not be for males X, Y, and for females XX.
You can have X, X, Y, and XO.
You can have just X, you can have fragile X, you can have XXY. There's a number of genetic screw-ups that, for the most part, will have some fairly significant changes. I think these XXY Klinefelter syndrome, they're extremely tall, have low intelligence. I mean, if you happen to have been born with those genetic aberrations,
Which
then
one should we focus on?
hmm?
Which one should we focus on?
No. Normal males are this, normal females are that. So, without a doubt. We need to know this term, which I hope you've heard along the way. The human genome is what?
Instructions for
Yeah,
basically every part of your body.
the instructions for, literally, for how to build a human.
Mr.
Building an organism, it could be a sheep genome, it could be a cow genome, it could be your doggy's genome.
Did you know you can mess up your genomes?
Hmm?
You can mess up your genome. Like, a scientist can change your genome.
You mean someone who's doing cloning?
No, like, so you have these genes called Hox genes, and they show where, like, your body parts will develop. And they've done this experiment, like, if you have, like, a fly.
like stem cell research.
Yeah. So if you have, like, a fly and you switch around its Hox gene, it'll grow legs on its face or something. Or it will have 2 butts. Like, it's really weird. You
That's what they're
can
doing
like
research.
mess with your genome.
Yeah,
It's
that's why
really
they're doing
awkward.
Really
research
cool.
with stem cells and for like regeneration of like I don't know organs and things. Like they're doing research with changing those Hox cells or whatever,
Mhm.
and like making them so that that any stem cell can control what it becomes. Like if you were to get like a transplant or something.
But that's what a stem cell does all by itself.
No, I know, but you can control, like, it's something like, so that they can have it, like, I don't know, something weird.
You
So
can-
like you could grow like another organ to use for a human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you take the cell of like a
I know
liver.
someone who just got injected in her knee, instead of getting a knee replacement, she got, like, something to do with stem cells, like, injected into her knee. I don't know what it was, I didn't get to hear about it, but,
And so those cells will know what to do in her knee,
yeah.
right?
Should
Yeah, but what's been happening, I guess, is that like they've been becoming like they like die off faster because they're not natural.
Oh.
They don't have as long
Like they,
strands to
yeah,
remake
They're not
their
as
own selves, and then
robust, they're not as healthy.
yeah, no, and a lot of times like your body will reject it, obviously.
whenever you replicate your own DNA, the strand of DNA gets shorter, which is why as you get older, it becomes
The
Telomeres.
The
Yeah,
telomeres.
the telomeres.
Yeah.
So the telomeres of
I
a stem
got
cell
you.
are much
Great.
smaller than regular telomeres.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest contributors to aging. The human genome was a project that
The health of the man.
seemed to me to be like an impossibility. Like, how are you gonna literally go through all the genes that creates a human? That seems like an overwhelming task. But they had a goal of reaching that by the year 2000, and they got it done in 1999. And so the Human Genome Project, as it was called, was completed, and
You can look at it online.
we can also probably go to some hidden place in, I don't know, Lithuania or someplace where they're actually building new humans.
Lithuania?
Field
The-
trip.
Why Lithuania?
Oh, I'm thinking
Lithuanians
some
are-
little tucked away.
Oh, okay. I was like, I thought that was the actual answer.
Like,
I was
this
like,
is the
why?
head of, yeah.
Why not like Germany or
I could see Germany
Japan
doing that.
or like somewhere else?
I don't think most countries ethically are admitting
Probably
to, no,
The NSA is
That's
probably doing
going-
something.
that's going Aldous Huxley, Brave New World sort of thing. Okay, and you know that you're highly connected genomically to other organisms, especially the primates, that there's only 0.5% difference between your genome and that of a chimp. There is 50% difference in your genome and that of a banana. So, even 50% of our genes are shared with a banana. Okay, let's make sure we've got our
Now, is that
info.
just that's like the type of genes, right? Like I know they're all listed with different names. Like it'll be like NR330 or something weird
Right.
like that. And then, but like, are they saying that like we have the exact same ones? It's like you can get like a billion just different choices for like just one section. Like, and doesn't it depend on how many chromosomes you have? Like, I know humans have 46, but like,
I haven't got a clue how many chromosomes are in a banana.
I think it's way less. I don't know.
True. And that's, okay, I'm going off topic. I was
Yeah,
gonna
I
talk
know.
about wheat and about the number of chromosomes in wheat and why the wheat we eat today is not at all like the wheat that grew 40,000 years ago.
And that's why everyone
And
has
that is why
gluten
people have,
deficiencies.
right, gluten sensitivities today. Because we were not designed to eat the wheat that has
Monsanto.
44 chromosomes, I believe, where originally it had literally a small handful. Okay, let's talk about twins, all right?
Mine.
Just in case you have any confusion between identical and fraternal.
Oh, is this chapter?
It's this chapter.
Oh, cool. I'm good at this chapter.
This chapter, you're right, this chapter is an easy chapter, honestly.
Megan, this is the A chapter?
What?
This is the A chapter?
This will be the A chapter.
This is, set a goal.
Hopefully.
This is my A chapter, there you go. Sorry, I'm making sure, there we go, okay. So we have identical twins that form from one egg that splits.
I'm gonna start everything.
If that egg splits, that means that there is the same DNA in both, right? So that is why identical twins are identical.
How does the egg split? Like, is
That's not part of what I need to teach you,
How does it
fortunately.
split? You don't know. What?
Maybe you, even if you do, is thank goodness is not part of what I need to deal with.
I was wondering, like, what's the point?
No, I don't know how the egg splits. The egg
It just
splits.
does. No one knows actually. I think that's the answer.
That's just,
Like it starts to do cell division, like to create one, and then it just like falls apart and makes
Because you'd
two.
have to replicate the DNA.
Yeah. Well, I know the cells are dividing.
Yeah.
The
It's
DNA
creating
get-
one baby, but then like all of a sudden it's just like nah, and like accidentally splits in half or something.
Remember,
Right.
Abby, DNA gets replicated before the splitting of the cell.
and
Remember, Abby.
the
Well, I got
fraternal
pretty good about
twin,
Yeah.
sometimes, all right, let's move ahead, because I really am trying to keep you, okay. By the way, identical twins can only be same sex. You can't have a boy and a girl who are identical. By definition, a boy versus girl. Fraternal twins means that 2 eggs came down from the fallopian tubes, which is definitely possible
I have a question.
at any time, and they were both fertilized. Okay, 2 distinct eggs. Yes,
Fraternal twins, I mean, it has to be different sex, but could it be possible to have 2 different eggs but and not having the same sex?
Fraternal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
oh sure.
Okay.
Missy and Katie Ryan are fraternal.
Oh, okay.
It just depends on the sperm and whether it's.
Okay.
2 different sperm,
Yeah.
2 different sperm, 2 different eggs. Okay, so we have
One.
2 different sperm and 2 different eggs. 2 different siblings.
It's
They
literally
just
just
happen to
sharing
grow up
They just
Right.
share the womb, same womb.
in the same womb.
Mhm.
However, there's also the idea of how many of them share the same placenta. In identical twinning, you've got, I think it's 1/3. See if there's any information here.
That's the nurture just starting even in the womb.
Right, exactly. So I wanna make sure that I'm not giving you information that's not correct.
Jenny and Kelly Reversal, they're fraternal, right?
Yep,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
however, they look a lot more alike now.
Now than they did
ever
before.
have.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yep,
Yeah, I just saw.
and then I think those are more cosmetic changes.
Yeah.
Change of hair, loss of weight,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things. Okay, so even in identical twins, there can be some difference because I believe 1/3 of ID twins share the same placenta, which means they get the same nutrition, same nourishment, etc. The other 2/3, and if I'm wrong on this, don't worry so much about the percentage, create a different placenta for each
Most
one.
identical twins share placenta during prenatal development, but one of every 3 sets has 2 separate placentas.
So that's right, right?
Okay.
No, so it's opposite.
No,
It's the other way around.
Oh,
One of
oh, yeah, okay.
Good thing I didn't write that down.
So 2/3.
2/3, but 1/3 have 2 placentas with differing, regardless how, how well the mother eats or whatever, there's still gonna be some differences in what that baby gets, as opposed to her sibling or his sibling. Different nutrients, differing amounts, not differing nutrients. So that's when the whole concept of environment or nurture differences. So when we say nature, we're talking about genetics. When we say nurture, we're talking about environment. Okay. And in every way, obviously, we know that identical twin studies
Yeah,
Have
she was implanted.
been the very best way to separate out. They've gotten more information from the twin studies that we'll talk about regarding what part of being a pair of humans that are conceived together, what part of what makes them alike or different is a result of their genes, and what part is environment. So the identical twin studies has given the majority of information about the effects of nature versus nurture. And in 1979, you do need to know this guy's name, Dr. Thomas Bouchard. Began an ongoing, and it's still ongoing, research study it happened to be in Minnesota,
Twin cities, right?
like Minnesota Twins, but that's not why. Began the Minnesota Twin Study. Where I think this was very difficult at first for him to do. I mean, think about 1979, the prevalence of computers was a lot less. Finding identical twins who had been reared apart. So now we've got people who are genetically the same, genes the same, but environment very different. And if you compare these people who, by the way, didn't even know they had another person that looked just like them out there in the real world, that's gotta kind of blow you away a little bit, to know that there's another you out there. And then brought them together. And he began with 79 twin pairs, did extensive physiological, psychological testing on them, to try to tease apart the effects of environment versus genes. Let me find the, and so they find out that there are most definitely things that are identical. Sorry, I'm in the way, Maggie. Your personality traits. You think of your personality as being something unique to you, but there are elements of your personality that are inherited. And your amount of extroversion or introversion is an inherited trait, and you're far more likely to be similar to an identical twin in that. So among many other things, here are just two random traits. The idea of extroversion. So this is along the lines of personality. And neuroticism. What the heck is neuroticism? It's that whole big umbrella for all those traits having to do with your anxiety levels, your all the things that tend to cause many disorders. We'll just call them the anxiety levels, and that'll make it make sense to you. Things like IQ.
Miss Stewart,
Uh-huh.
What does that say under identical twins? Like start with G.
Genes.
Under identical
Genes? G.
here,
Oh no, underneath.
Nope.
Oh,
There you go.
There.
genes.
Oh, genes.
G-E-N-E-S.
That's a
Clear
very
as-
end though.
A bell. Identical twins and their IQ have correlations of somewhere around 0.86. Remembering that positive, 1.00 is a perfect correlation, 0.86 is really high. And fraternal twins also have a higher than other siblings correlation of IQ, but not as high as identical twins. And then even things that you wouldn't think mattered, like how frequently people divorce, at the rates of divorce. You wouldn't think that makes any difference. I think I need to go ahead and play the Gem Twins video.
Yeah, but weren't they technically in the same environment because they were in like the same place? Not like environment like family wise, but like they grew up with the same kind of culture kind of thing going on because they were in the same
Middle
town.
class or working class, I
Yeah.
should say.
Put the cha-ching back in the check and take advantage.
Hush. It's just pretty cool to watch these guys. And I know several of you have been at this class.
And sets of twins who were raised apart. And
Just to get a visual on them is
some fascinating stories from this study.
That's right, Allison. Studying twins raised apart is the best natural experiment we have. Genetic and environmental influences are disentangled, and we can look at the differences between identical twins and see where the environment comes in to create these differences in genetically identical people.
Let's start with the nutty story about the Jim twins. So these guys were separated at birth.
They were separated at birth, and they did not meet until they were 39 years old. They lived in different cities in Ohio. And actually, it's not as nutty as you think. It really gives us wonderful science because they had so many traits in common. Both developed migraine headaches at the same time in their lives. They both had woodworking proclivities. They both liked to vacation the same 3-block strip of beach in Florida.
They both named their dog Toy.
They named their dog's Toy, and one has to wonder what drives that. Perhaps it's the sound of the name, or it reminds them of something. But at any rate, studying identical twins raised apart gives us a whole domain for explanations for how we can understand these kinds of things and apply it at the general population level.
And for you to say fraternal twins are also interesting to study.
Fraternal twins are fascinating. They're very variable. They are genetically the same as ordinary siblings, but they're born at the same time and share the same intrauterine environment, and they provide a wonderful control for the identical twins. So we can see if identicals are more alike than fraternals, and if they are, that tells us that genes do affect that behavior.
Well,
all right. That's actually, I thought that was the one that was going to show me the guys. Huh.
No. It's like documentary.
There's a 10-minute one at the top. Robert Winston, the Jim twins. Maybe
Oh yeah, that's BBC.
Is it not that then?
No.
It's short. Well, there's 6 of them here, so.
and sets of twins who
It's the
That
next
would not
one,
be
yeah. Try the next one. Even though it is long, you can like put it where.
Well, at least see. Oh, that is it.
We're happy to accept the idea that physical characteristics, like speed and endurance, have a strong genetic component. Fast dogs are bred from parents who are fast. But when it comes to us, to our personality and the choices we make in life, we feel differently. The idea that we are all running around a track following some predetermined genetic script is repellent. But some twin stories really make you wonder.
Now, although the story of Jenny and Margaret is pretty surprising, it's nothing compared with the astonishing story of the Jim twins.
Meet Jim Lewis and Jim Springer. They have different surnames and they don't look much alike, but they are identical twins. The Jims were separated as babies and were reunited when they were 39 years old.
It was a very good, warm feeling, you know. It's like you had something, a favorite of yours, and you lost it, and you had to have it, you know. And you finally found it. It's a good feeling to find that thing. Well, that's what it was with Jim. Words can't really say.
When the Jims met for the first time, they discovered that their lives were peppered with bizarre coincidences.
My first wife's name was Linda.
My first wife's name was Linda.
I divorced Linda and married Betty.
And then my second wife's name was Betty. And now I'm married to Sandy.
Well, she's kind of leery that she hopes I don't ever come here and call her a Sandy.
I got interested in woodwork because my father, he was always doing woodwork.
I've been doing woodworking for quite a long time. My first son's name was James Allen.
My first son was James Allen.
My favorite beer was Miller Lite, and I've always smoked Salem cigarettes.
My favorite beer is Miller's Lite. And smoking, I smoke Camel Lite, but then I smoke Salem Lite too. I switch back and forth.
I was in the sheriff's department in Miami County as a deputy.
I was deputy sheriff for 7 years.
It's impossible to fathom the odds for some of the Jims' coincidences. The information is simply not available. But for some of the habits they shared, we can do the calculations.
When the two Jims met in 1979, each was driving a Chevrolet, and it turns out, according to the experts, that the chances of any one man driving a Chevrolet then was 7 to 1. Now, both men driving a Chevrolet would therefore be 49 to 1. And they were also both heavy smokers and heavy drinkers. And the chances of any two men both being heavy drinkers would be about 35 to 1. And at that time, in 1979, the chance of any two men both being heavy smokers was about 300 to 1. Well, the chances of each one of these on its own isn't really that surprising. But if you put them all together, the overall coincidence is really rather amazing.
To get the odds of all the similarities being down to pure coincidence, you have to multiply them together. In betting terms, it's called an accumulator. And these figures give you odds of 500,000 to 1 against two men sharing those habits by pure chance. Same sort of odds I might get here on any one dog winning every race till the end of the season.
It would be impossible for it to win 50 races. And if you think it could win 50 races, I would offer you 500,000 to 1. Has that ever happened? It's never happened, no. And it never will happen. Same field research. If you take any two people and look hard enough, you'll always find some similarities. But the two Jims are so alike, despite being brought up by different parents in different homes, that it's hard to escape the thought that they've been shaped by forces deeper and ultimately more important than just their home environment. Psychologist Tom Bouchard has met more separated twins than anyone else in the world, but the Jims were his first. They kicked off a 20-year study that's changing the way we think about being human.
The first week we was there, we answered 10,000 questions, true or false, and multiple cases.
We look at their hobbies, their the jobs they've held, their personality traits, their abilities.
We took photos of her ears, of her eyes, and they took her fingerprints.
Their height, their weight, their brain waves.
The twins' IQ and personality profile were strikingly similar. It was as if they had tested the same person twice.
The very first morning we started to work with them, one of the twins put his hand on the table, and I noticed that he bit his nails. And I remember saying to myself, oh, isn't that interesting? Wouldn't it be interesting if his twin brother bit his nails? And as I was thinking that, his twin brother put his hand on the table, and sure enough, they were both nail biters. And I said, that's not on any psychological test or any psychological characteristic.
Maybe it should
The
be.
way you wear your hat,
Okay. Now it goes on to
the
some other
way you
women.
sip your tea.
The Jims were only the
Could you
first
imagine,
of
like,
hundreds of separated
watching the
twins
two have
to
the
pass through
conversation.
Bouchard's
Like,
hands.
oh yeah, I have a son, his
Few
name.
were as remarkable
Or
as
like all
them.
those things.
In fact,
They'd
some were
be-
quite
They'd be like,
dissimilar.
oh my gosh, me too. They'd be like, what's your wife's name? Oh
There
my god,
are,
so is mine.
Yeah.
Each have,
Getting that info
the
for the
differences
first
are great
time.
enough so that each have
Make
their
my
own
mouth drop.
personality, etc.
You're probably thinking.
Well, when you work with them, you can just see the kind of similarity in the underlying template. The way you wear your
Like, who names their dog?
The two twins are like variations on a theme. A memory of all that. No, they can't take that away from me. What behavior geneticists have discovered is that most characteristics that you can measure reliably with psychological tests, mental abilities, personality, and vocational interest, they all show genetic influence in the range of 40 to 50%. That's typically what we find. There's this common level of genetic influence across lots and lots of traits.
Just an announcement that the boys swim team are now district champions. Go Stingrays!
Nice.
Wow. Boys. Have the girls done the same?
Girls are not. There's like 4 girls.
So there'll be individuals, like Mara will move
Yeah,
on.
Maura will.
Yeah, Laura's probably gonna be the only girl to move on though.
No, probably not. Oh, actually, I don't know. Actually, maybe.
I don't.
I
Maybe
think
some
Because there's
good
Katie and Missy who
surprises.
probably won't.
Okay, so that's enough of that video, by the
That
way.
was a weird